Hi, everyone. My name is Dennis Shao, organizer of the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. Thanks for being here today. Today's actually our first meetup ever where we're talking about the topic of artificial intelligence in marketing. So I'm really excited. I have two wonderful people that I think over 10 years ago, we all worked together. It's quite a while ago. Elizabeth Irvine and Jeff Coyle. They're from MarketMuse. They'll be telling you a little bit more about MarketMuse. And they're going to talk about how AI can be used to plan and produce high quality content. So I'm really excited to hear more about that. Jeff and Elizabeth, take it away.
Thank you, Dennis. And yes, we worked together. I don't know what dates it was, but it was probably a decade ago
Yeah,
over
good while ago.
at Tech Target. So yeah, I'm Jeff Coyle. If we haven't met, I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer for MarketMuse. And what chief strategy officer means is that I do a little bit of a lot of different things, but previously managed the product data science and engineering, as well as oversaw marketing before we had Elizabeth take over marketing and just own it and make it so that I'm more of a advisor to that role. Yeah, Elizabeth, you want to say a little bit about yourself, and then I'll kick into the presentation.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the VP of marketing at MarketMuse and head up our content initiatives and events and all of the fun things that come under that umbrella. And happy to be here with you all. And it's great to meet you all, especially because we're remote and not local. So we feel really spoiled that we're able to connect with you virtually. So thank you, Dennis, for inviting us.
Yes, I'll just give her a quick kudos. We just executed our first customer conference. Over like 13 to 1400 customers attended, first virtual show. So if you ever have any questions about running virtual events, Elizabeth is like superstar. What I'm going to do is really talk about the value that MarketMuse provides, as well as artificial intelligence, but a bit from an agnostic perspective, not product specific. But then Dennis said that, one of the key things that everybody is really asking for is to see some, product demonstration. So after we get into it, I'm going to do a quick run through of our software platform. Quick background: MarketMuse, now about 7 years we've been in market. So our initial offering was really focused on just optimizing existing content and inspiring content. And then we've expanded that to be able to focus on prioritization, research, and all the stages of the content lifecycle. Let me hop onto my screen. Can everybody see that pretty well? I hope so.
Yes.
We're on Zoom all day. It's always bad when you go from Teams to Syndicate to, hop in, then to Zoom, then all your settings are all messed up. But right now, I've been in Zoom all day, so I think we'll be all right. So really the value that we provide is speeding up all stages of the content creation lifecycle, but doing so where the outcome is content that we are equivalently happy about. Our parting line is, we set the standard for content quality. And as I'll talk about with our artificial intelligence innovations, we're able to evaluate content and say objectively whether it's comprehensive, whether it's written from the lens, that which a subject matter expert would have written it. And then we've taken that technology and applied it to all the stages of the content lifecycle, because they're painful and they're manual, and the wrong people are typically doing those things. So you've got great writers and subject matter experts doing keyword research. You've got SEOs doing writing. You've got people that just are, part of these processes and, manual repetitive tasks. And so what we like to talk to teams about, whether they're an agency or whether they're a kind of an in-house team, is, how much manual labor are you spending at each of these stages for research, planning, building briefs? Do you even build briefs? If you are outsourcing content, do you have a standard, a source of truth for every content item that you're creating, or for every update or optimization motion that you're executing? Do you have a predictable or even a prediction layer for your content? So you say, I expect that this much of my content is going to perform and hit KPIs. and I can be confident I'm using data to drive that prediction. And then, the thing that separates content teams, I like to share this as much as I can, is ones that have great update and optimization cadences. So they know how often they need to update content. They have, resources dedicated. They have standard operating procedures. And we like to take those teams and kind of make them deadly weapons. Because we're saving time in the really, really painful part. We're saving time inside the briefing, the writing, the editing, but also we're giving people more confidence at the research and the planning side. And Dennis had asked us to specifically talk a lot about the technology that's behind many of our innovations. But I also like to talk about it just, saves time at each stage of a lot of painful things. So we have writers that have taken, 8 to 9 hours off of their per page load. I mean, MarketMuse was created. I worked with Dennis at a business that had a very large editorial team. And I analyzed their workflows. And it was, first of all, a lot of subjectivity. Don't tell me what to write. I know what I'm doing. I'm the subject matter expert. But it was also a lot of manual processes that were not performance driven. So I'd analyzed all these workflows and said, just the process of doing research on one topic, right, to really blow it out and have all that data in front of me would take 30 hours, 20 to 30 hours, if you were really doing a comprehensive topic analysis. And we're able to take that down in minutes. And that's why I decided that MarketMuse was, the plan. But just to backtrack a bit, I wanted to talk about the natural language processing and natural language generation. If you don't know these two acronyms, I think I've got some chats coming in. Oh, here we are. NLG. Oh, what is NLG? All right. So natural language generation and natural language processing. So I'll take it even one step up. Artificial intelligence is a lot of things. They're typically referenced as branches of artificial intelligence. You probably heard of things like robotics, obviously, and also things like computer vision, right? Where technology can be trained to look at a picture and know what it is, or know something about it that it typically wouldn't. Well, the branches of artificial intelligence that we work in are natural language processing and, components of that. And what that means is effectively, I'm going to program a computer to recognize a lot of natural language data. And that sounds like I'm using the word in the definition, but it's really important because it breaks down into other things like topic modeling. So we can look at hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of pieces of text and try to figure out what each one of those pages is about. Try to figure out what it would mean to be an expert. And basically being able to say, if I were comprehensive, if I wrote great content about this topic, I would naturally have pages about these other topics. This page will naturally talk about all the stages of the buy cycle. And as content marketers, you just naturally have that in that. You have to do early stage awareness, consideration, purchase, post-purchase, troubleshooting, champion and advocate development. We have to build that content. But what MarketMuse is, one of our core goals is to use natural language processing to systematize or operationalize or bring objective measures for those things. So we do that by analyzing the intent behind content. We do that by looking at, like I mentioned, topic models to say, if I were going to write a great article about content marketing strategy, I had better talk about target audiences. I'd better talk about buyer personas. Because if I don't, then that content is going to be pretty fluffy. It's likely written by someone who doesn't actually know their stuff. So natural language processing, you encounter this all the time, right? You probably used a chat bot, Facebook and their algorithm, Twitter and their algorithm, LinkedIn, just what shows in your river, in your stream. If you've worked with, Cortina or, your Dot or your Echo, all those things involve various aspects of processing language and then trying to do stuff with it, build applications out of it. In our case, we're trying to do everything to empower search teams, content marketing teams, editorial leads, subject matter experts to get more high quality content live, update that content with some data, so it's not just subjective. How should I expand this? How should I make this up to date to be within what, target intents? And then any other workflows that relate to, things that slow down or make content teams inefficient. Generation is the scary black box that is no longer a scary black box. So what generation does is it allows you to use natural language processing basics, like I just discussed. Think about it. If I'm going to look at 100 million pages and say, what does it mean to be, about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as we just discussed? Like, what are the things that I would naturally want to mention if I was writing a content package about that place? Let's say I never mentioned guitars. It's probably not a really great comprehensive piece, right? But what natural language generation does is it allows you to build either general models of language using lots of content, or really specific models of language that you can tune for various aspects. So I can make it write like Dennis if I want. I can read all the articles that he's ever written, and I can start to try to predict the way that he writes, the way that the tone, the way that the voice, the word usage. And so you can actually tune up language models now very, very economically, whereas in the past you could not. So you can transform the structured data into English, into other languages. And the key there is that there's a lot of different versions of this. Just like there's AI that controls embedded systems in cars that you never see, but when you say AI, most people think of a robot. Well, in natural language generation, it can be something very rudimentary, like almost like a one level up from Mad Libs for generation, right? You've probably seen it. You said, what to do when you go to Atlanta, and it says, you are 1.8 miles away from the aquarium. You are 9.2 miles away from the airport, right? That's a flavor of generation. But what true generation is, and I'm not going to get into all the detail, what true generation from the standpoint of authoring is really predictive, open-ended, free-form natural language generation that is not driven by templates. It can be inspired by structure, but it's not a template like you see on a realtor site when it says this 4-bedroom, 3-bath, lovely home in the Avondale neighborhood, right? That's the more template driven, or maybe on a financial site where it's showing me a list of things that it likely comes from a template. I always like to differentiate those two things. I'm going to hand this over to Elizabeth, because what she's primarily focused on is positioning us as, amongst natural language processing and amongst natural language generation, different than some of the other use cases that you commonly see.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And he just explained long form content generation and how you can use NLG for long form generation. But there's actually a lot of other uses for more shorter forms of content, and even inspiration. And you can use that with MarketMuse as well. But you can use different inputs, like Jeff was alluding to with templates. You fill in certain fields and it will spit out some ideas or some sentences. And there's companies like Lately and a couple of others that can craft social media posts for you based on your previous posts, using your tone and voice. And it just, as you can imagine, is a time saver. But those things also require human intervention before publishing, which is something that we talk about a lot too, because you want to make sure that you're staying true to who you are, and you're validating what's coming out, but using that time saving aspect of the generation to propel your work forward and get more done in a shorter amount of time. Go ahead, Jeff.
I think that's a great point. Making sure you've got the gate on these things is very key, because of the dramatic and traumatic impact of putting something out that would have a negative impact on the business. It would be like not editing you know, something that came from a brand new outsourced writer, which you would never do, right? You would never put that through your feedback loop. And there's already a lot of, you know, no matter what it is a social media or otherwise, where we see this, and I always like to talk about product market fit and maturity. You know, 10 years ago, 10 years ago is the wrong number. It's probably more like 18 years ago. You probably had your first experience with a spell checker. It was a little bit awkward and, you know, it wasn't very good. You know, then you had your first experience with a grammar checker and it wasn't great. And then now it's just ubiquitous. It's like part of your life is that you have Grammarly and it works really, really well, whether you use that or Hemingway. What we've seen in the market is about 7 years ago when we introduced the first assistance for optimizing content or focusing on quality. You know, people were weirded out by that. They weren't comfortable with it. But now that workflow, updating content or getting assistance on what it means to be an expert on content, everybody's really comfortable with it. And I say that because now we're going through maturity for content briefs and people are comfortable with technology giving them recommendations for outlines, for questions to answer, for intents to target. But that took a long time too. You know, everybody said, oh no, my briefs need to be customized. And what MarketMuse enables you to do is have a automated part of the brief, and then you can layer on any customization that you need. But the last part of that funnel is the one that nobody's ready for NLG. We've learned that through having worked on this for 4 years. So the inspiration part's very key. That's how we're bringing it into teams and saying, like, you may read some of these inspirational drafts and you're not going to take much from them. You may take sections in and tweak them, or it may just give you inspiration about how you would write it better or how you would do this in a more effective way, but you're not starting from a zero state. You've got the brief, you've got the outline, and then you've got some inspirational ways that it could be crafted. And that's where we're seeing teams really get it. But what we also saw early on was when we were throwing these at people as Google Docs, they were going, oh my gosh, these are terrible. Because people's natural, their brain, the way it works is they read something and they say whether it's good or bad. It's just a fact of life. That's what our brains do. And so if you know something is generated and you read it, you're judging it and you're not thinking about ways that it can improve your workflow or enhance your, you know, creativity or enhance your efficiency. And when I say efficiency, I mean like all the stages of the funnel, but most importantly, how many content items am I able to create and publish, and how many of them are successful based on whatever KPIs I've enabled. And unfortunately, the average in our market segments is about 10%. So the real costs of content are about 10x what people think they are. But that's another story for another day. And what we focus on is building out and giving you this type of technology at all those stages. So I mentioned an on-demand content inventory, which sounds very far-fetched if you do one inventory per year, but that's what our technology enables us to do. You can evaluate all of your pages, know what they're about, know whether they're well written, know where you have strengths and weaknesses, know where you have intent mismatches, all the things that power our plans and prioritization. What should I do today? What would make the biggest impact on my business, or, you know, any other goal that might be associated. We, through content briefs and then now through draft generation, we empower and accelerate the creation and then provide insights of ways that you can optimize content that's already been published. And cool part, which I'm going to show you examples of, one of my favorite parts, is being able to predict performance effectively. So knowing that if I cover a topic comprehensively on this particular, you know, thing, and I follow our content brief, I have a degree of predictability with my content from the standpoint of organic search performance, being able to have an understanding of how much content you need to build and how predictive your efforts are going to be. And the reason why we're able to do that is because we've normalized the quality and the quality, right? And the comprehensiveness. making this judgment based on the, the preconceived like agreement that you're going to write something great. So if you go out there and write something wonderful, we can predict whether it's going to perform. And what that does, that inspires that content confidence. So when someone says, hey, I have this subjective perspective about what we should write, we can give great estimates about how much effort it's going to take, how comprehensive it needs to be, get teams aligned a lot quicker. Instead of an SEO team sending a list of keywords, they're able to provide editorially appropriate insights. And then for a subject matter expert or an editorial team, it's just a dream come true because you don't have to do any more of the keyword research. You can just focus on the stuff that you like to do, which is be a subject matter expert and write great content. And the NLG is a big thing behind that. And I always like to stop this discussion with, why do you write content? And what MarketMuse really focuses on is we're the why for everything that you write. Are you going to write you want to write the content item that's going to have the biggest traffic gain tomorrow? Cool. I can show you how to do that. Update a particular page. Which pages should I update that are low quality or have the biggest opportunity to grow? Do I have goals? I want to own this topic. I want to grow traffic this much in this area. I want to grow, traffic to this stage of the buy cycle through this part of the funnel. Or do I just have risks like competitive risks or, the thing that makes everybody red in the face? I have a couple pages that get way too much traffic and I'm worried about them. We run into situations where companies are built on websites that have 4 pages that get 90% of their traffic and they don't know how to fortify that infrastructure. Well, what we try to focus on is ways that you can support that through cluster development or through journey orchestration, which I'm sure those are things that you focus on with all your content efforts. Or maybe you're just part of a big organization and you have to follow orders and you get content orders and you just have to put your best foot forward. Even if you're in that type of situation, we find that when we work with teams, they're very successful. I'm just checking the chats. How do you capture the data to create our NLG? See, that's a great question, Harry. Thank you for asking it. And what are some of the methods to extract the best content? That's a great question too. I will answer all of those things. Okay, so there is a publicly available generation product made by a company called OpenAI. You probably heard that. They make a product called GPT-3. All that is a big old language model. It hasn't been updated since 2019. It's amazing. It's a wonderful thing. That's not what we do. We built our own natural language generation platform. A lot of the software you'll see in the market right now, all it is an API access to that OpenAI product. For us, we're able to do whatever we want, right? And it also allows us to do some really cool things. Like when we generate content, we can generate like hundreds of drafts behind the scenes and only show you the ones we like. So that gives us a huge competitive advantage over someone who's just operating an API and has to pay per drink. And so those are the types of things that we do. So how do we decide? Using the same conceptual technology I've talked about, we can evaluate whether a content item is high quality or not. So when we're looking at massive quantities of content in order to create language models, we can say, hey, only use ones that pass this particular hurdle for quality. And that then again gives us a huge competitive advantage for building language models. And how do we decide? We decide using eating our own dog food, using our own content score and authority metrics. And I'll show you them in the platform in a minute. That can be, you can use that application for every aspect of what I've talked about. I'll stop there in case there's any verbal non-chat questions, and then I'll set up my my demo and then walk through a few high levels. But please ask away, Harry. Great question.
Okay, just to follow on that though, so you're saying that while you guys have your own dog food, the GPT-3 model yours is superior to that, then, is what I'm hearing?
It is a general language model, and it uses it's very large. It has some amazing characteristics, but for these use cases, Yeah, absolutely.
Got it.
Because it's so configurable. If you were to invest significantly in improving their model and tuning it, you can have similar outcomes. But yes, we're heavily focused on the reality, and especially in B2B, that you can't put out ugly stuff. One bad content item can really spoil the broth for your company. So we're trying to build out ways that people can customize. So in the future, our product route for this is to have a general language model present for everyone in MarketMuse, but then be able to tune and focus on quality for other more custom or bespoke offerings. So that's where we're headed with this, versus just plugging a general model in and letting the masses figure out whether they can use it or not. It's a little bit of a different approach than what we've seen. Elizabeth, you're going to comment?
Yeah, when he says general, it's the inputs are so vast. It includes a lot of different content types and language, and it doesn't apply filters to exclude explicit or risky content.
Right.
So which ours is really built for long form content with a really like Jeff had indicated, filtered and specific input set. So while the GPT-3 database is larger, it includes a lot of different stuff. So it requires really thinking through how you use it and editing and making sure that you're not potentially using something that could damage your brand. Or if you're using it for something that's not business focused, like a book or something, and you have some certain perspectives that are brought in there that are unintentional to what you're putting out. That's kind of the broad nature of what Jeff is indicating.
Great point. And in all of natural language processing and generation, one of the most important academic concepts is bias. And so bias in language models come from them being very general, or them being trained on, when I say trained, like the machine learning training data trained on a bunch of documents that also have bias. So like if in Dennis's articles that I was using to build my hypothetical model, if they were super like biased towards one perspective, well, then that writer is going to have mimic those biases. And what you also find is, by the way, new models are going to come out that are going to be even better. And Google has one called, it's a derivative of Excel, which is 5 times as large as GPT-3. There are some open source versions that are aiming to do this. The innovation in this field is happening every 3 to 6 months, whereas it was every 2 to 3 years when we first started working on this. Like the first 4 versions of this that we built, we didn't release because we just knew they weren't good enough, and they were too expensive. Once we got over the cliff of expense as well as quality, it actually happened right around the time GPT-3 came out. So it was but now we just know we have to fight against Elon Musk and Microsoft, which, is always an easy battle. He's one of the main funders for OpenAI, and Microsoft is OpenAI's main reseller, in case that was news. So yeah, I'll paddle in here, and please keep asking away, and I'll try to follow the questions as well. All right, so this is a MarketMuse experience, and like I mentioned, this isn't just about generation, but I'm going to show you a generation first draft in its current formation, in its current format. So what MarketMuse does, basically, it provides you a control center as a content strategist for your site, or for a collection of sites, or for a site you're analyzing that might be, a competitive site. What it's doing is it's allowing you to define any view you'd want to see on your content. And so when you land inside MarketMuse, what you're seeing are ideas for things to create or ideas for things to update. And we provide kind of a configurable dashboarding, like you're probably familiar with in most enterprise platforms, where we can say, hey, here's some quick wins. Here's your starter set. This might show you a thin content item. This might show you some topics that are going to be easy wins for your team. But we also build them for writers. What pages should I optimize? Really advanced strategies. And, this is on marketmuse.com. So it's giving me insights on, if I'm going to go cover natural language programming is a great idea for me to cover. Here's some pages that need to be updated. Our what is content strategy with examples page needs to be expanded. And I'll actually show you that use case. And what we also then do is you can create your own, you can define your own. Let's say you only work on one section of a site, or you only want to see insights that relate to a particular topic. You can define all those views so that that's your dashboard when you sign into MarketMuse, your content strategy dashboard. We also then have we have two flavors of content inventories. They are based on topics, and then they are based on the pages that you have. Our all view is just all your page topic combinations. And what I wanted to show you here, if you've done any search engine optimization work, I wanted to show you the two things that are going to be very, very exciting inside this view, because I know we're a little short on time. In the topics view, we have the only in-market metric. So we have some commodity data. We have where we're ranking. We have what page is ranking for these terms. We have the only in-market metric for topic authority. And so this tells me how well I've covered this topic across my entire site. It has my breadth of coverage, my quality of coverage, and my current momentum. So this is basically telling me how much of an authority am I on this concept. And we take that and we pair it with our own metric for keyword difficulty or topic difficulty. So how hard will this be to rank? And what that gives us is a predictable measure for how much work we need to do. So we have the only in-market metric for personalized difficulty. So this is a question, the answer of how much content do I need to create, and how hard is it going to be for me to improve my standing on this topic? And so this doesn't exist in any other platform. You may have seen a generalized difficulty metric. It's typically done based on links only, and it doesn't actually read content. Our competitive advantage is that we read all the content. We can tell whether it's high quality or low quality. And we can also look at entire sites holistically very quickly. So we can say how much content, how often do they write good content, how many standout huge authority pages do they have, how many support pages, and anything in between. We do the same thing on the page level. So you can have an on-demand page audit of all the pages on your site. We give you a sum of all the achievable market potential for every page based on the topics we've associated. So this page, we've associated 371 topics with this page. We give a pay-per-click replacement value. But one thing that we do that no one else does, I say authority a lot, we can tell you basically how powerful are these pages, right? The page authority. So what that allows me to do is I can look at all of my pages really quickly that are about content briefs. And I can see, do I have any really powerful ones? What are my other ones? Do I have any ones that need to be fixed because of a recent content migration? Do I get some insights from that, from that insight that's going to give me, things to do? What should I update? What should I create? So I can basically walk through my entire site at any time, and it will give me ideas of ways to expand or improve the site. From there, I would create content plans and I can create content briefs and drafts like we were talking about before. I'll show you what a content brief looks like very quickly. So yes, these are automated as I walk through. Gives me meets minimum for comprehensiveness and how many words it recommends. Tells me who's the target audience. Why are they searching for this topic? Who are the target audiences? What questions should I include in this piece? What are some titles that I should consider for points of reference? And what are some ways that MarketMuse says I could differentiate this title? And then we do the same thing for subheadings and sections. So what are some subheadings to consider? And then what are some subheads and sections that would differentiate my piece? We then provide the entire topic model. So all the topics that need to be included. So if I'm going to write an article about a guide to user acceptance testing, and I don't talk about business requirements, it's not all that comprehensive. That's basically what MarketMuse is telling you in plain language. And then we even give you internal and external linking recommendations. So you can make sure that it's woven into the existing fabric of your site and that you're referencing semantically related content. We then take that a step further for a writer, and we put that into an outline view for someone who maybe is just focused on getting stuff done. We put all this information in an outline view so that they know their first section is what is user acceptance testing, then it's what to know before adopting UAT, and then how to conduct UAT. That was the three sections of this brief. So then in our natural language generation process, I'm going to check the chat. How is value per month calculated? The default is pay per click replacement value. So Todd, if you had to go buy that traffic, how much would it cost? You can configure that for your site's RPM or for any other KPIs that you have. But the default is a PPC replacement value. For major publishers, most of them update their value data with their average RPM or their average revenue per visit. User intent profiles, you saw that in there. I didn't talk about that. Oh, I love these questions. Tom's got a good question. So user intent profile, we do what we have the true intent, and then we have Google's favorite intent. So we're able to look at a topic, and then we have intent fracture. So intent fracture means how explicit is the query, or is there a meaningful amount of people who would search for this term that might be in various stages of the buy cycle or the learning journey. That signifies fracture. So the example I'll use is CRM software, right? I could be looking for what is CRM software. I could be trying to compare CRM software. I might want to buy something, for my business, and I'm already that stage of the funnel. Just looking up for the term CRM software is a very intent fractured topic. If it was, Salesforce CRM list management troubleshooting, that's very, very explicit intent. If it was, how do you get bees out of your garage? That's super specific intent. So what we do is we map topics to the user intent based on reading a bunch of content about the topic, as well as looking at Google's favorite intent. And we classify those as no simple, which means it's just answering a question. What's the capital of North Dakota? It's Bismarck. Is it no, which is early stage awareness? Is it compare? Is it transactional? We also have navigational or website query, which would be that. Tom, how do you know what topics to go after? I love this. So we have what's called a topic universe generation process. We read your entire site. We analyze what all of your content is about, not just the stuff you're performing for, but we read all the content you have. We then build all those topic models, and then that universe is generated. Let's say you don't have a lot of topics, or let's say you have your own keyword lists. You can bring it in. I call it BYOK. You can drop your entire topics list in. You can analyze an entire competitor and get all their topics and bring that in. And we will analyze that against your site. So it will tell you how you sit and whether you have any authority. In the MarketMuse account, a lot of people that mess around with this account put in silly words just to see if the authority is legitimate. So we can actually look, and I'll show you. Mileage may vary. Love live demos. Whatever. No, we don't have an authority on the term whatever. We don't have a lot of authority on the Acrolinks conference, right? So there, you can put in any concept, but we analyze a great starter set or a seeded set by reading your site. If you're trying to do something like create a brand new website, we would be inspired by our separate process that includes looking at competitors as well as analyzing topics. Hopefully that answered your question, Tom. That's a really good one. Dennis, could there be a chicken and egg scenario? For instance, your model knows that user acceptance testing needs to cover business requirements. But what about a brand new topic that the model hasn't seen before? There can be a chicken and egg scenario, but it's very, very uncommon because our model is very, very smart at connecting the dots between this word or this phrase and semantically related concepts. So if it's truly a new word and it doesn't relate to anything else in existence, then it can be a problem. The most common thing that I would call a chicken and egg scenario is actually a meaning disambiguation problem, where the word I think something means something, but the popular meaning of the term is something else. And in that case, we have to do a little bit of refinement. That can also happen with acronyms or where there's multiple meanings on a word, and there's ways that we can trim out the other meanings. But it's different than intent, but it's very rare. How do you read the entire site, and how long does it take? What are our costs? It's really fast, and we used to be really slow and painful. Our first site audit offering, we actually took it out of the market because it was just so slow about 5 years ago. But then when we sped it up, and now we're able to turn these around, most sites in under a day. We're able to give early insights very, very quickly. I don't know if someone said something, but yeah, we can turn these things around very quickly. We have companies with multiple millions of topics under management on their sites. And we have kind of really focused on scalability. The reason why we're able to do that, in my personal perspective of that, is because we really believe in data independence. We don't rely on anyone else for our data. It's all our own. Similar tact we took to natural language generation. We didn't want to be reliant on other businesses for our core IP.
And Jeff, I think Rich has a question. Rich?
Oh, hey, Rich.
Hey, sorry, noisy environment. That was me coming off mute to ask a question. It's a longer question, so I didn't chat it. So we use a combination of SEMrush and search metrics for Autodesk.com. And
Awesome.
some of what I'm seeing is similar. When you go into a deal, are you displacing an SEO tool typically with a prospect becoming a customer, or are you additive to their SEO, or are you displacing or going up against some other AI tool? Like, what's the competitive landscape? I'm trying to get my head around how I might use MarketMuse, given I already have SEMrush and search metrics.
Gotcha. So the answer to that question is we're typically informing folks how to use all of those things together and better. However, it is quite common for someone to come off of search metrics, Bright Edge, Conductor, and transition to a Href, SEMrush, MarketMuse combo. Although we do have teams that use both as a amplifier. We're big fans of all those platforms and their various capabilities. So we try to position as an accelerator. If it's a battle for budget, though, I mean, sometimes what are your outcomes, and are you confident with your prioritization? And we go from there, and then we go through their workflows. The real difference in from a content marketing perspective with a search metrics or a Conductor or a Bright Edge is any brief development is going to be very form specific. And if you're getting anything custom, it's all professional services driven. And so that's really the differentiator for us.
Right. That's a good answer. And, we're finding, we love the keyword magic of SEMrush, but I also love the content brief ideation of search metrics. And so, I've got all these marketing tools, right? I'm the one duct taping them together. What's your API play? Do you play nice? Do you integrate with others? How does that work?
Well, I will. So we own the largest keyword database that exists, and we are expanding our data offerings right now. I said before, I'm the chief strategy officer. My main goal for 2021 is to innovate our data offerings, and so very soon we'll have a pretty significant data offering that plays well. We've done custom configurations with all those platforms, though. So
good. And then last comment, right? Our challenge is really on the AKN knowledge site, 8 million URLs, end of journeys, help support learn content.
Yep.
It's all branded long tail. Our super low volume. Most tools give us no data because there's 5 queries a month for and they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 keywords long. So I am curious though, how I might do some tire kicking. Like, is there I don't know, a free trial or some demo I could get?
Absolutely. So there is a trial of our applications, which I'm about to show you.
Okay, good segue.
Yeah, great segue. And then on the inventory side, we don't have any of those constraints. So that's good.
Okay.
So I'll walk through these and then.
Thanks.
So,
I'll put my hand down now.
that was awesome. So optimize is, you mentioned other people in the market for this type of workflow. You have ClearScope and a Surfer and Phrase all have page level optimization solutions. And that's kind of where their product stops. That's just one component of our solution. And the way that we do topic modeling, we built it all ourselves. It's focused on comprehensiveness and quality. The competitive differentiation there is they just look at the top X search results and do correlations.
Yeah,
So,
I just Googled like who are the MarketMuse competitors. So I saw those listed. Real quick question. Are you on a Forrester Wave or on a Magic Quadrant?
G2 Crowd would be our only current presence. Yeah, I use this example because that was something I was actually working on before for a client who is not Thunderhead, but is a competitor. And so I just wanted to show you this. So basically we build a model on any topic. And then we give you this data in line and you can compare any existing page, or you can actually author or paste drafts or sections of drafts in here. It shows you what topics you're missing. So in this case, for this article on Thunderhead, they didn't talk about customer data, customer journey analytics, customer mapping, didn't talk about customer behavior, didn't talk about marketing automation or touch points or channels. And you can also go head to head with any of your competitors. So I can actually put myself head to head with Kitewheel and really do a dissection or x-ray of their page to see where I might want to differentiate from them. We take that a step further and we give it to you all in one view. And what this really does, and this is a topic, content marketing metrics, it shows you all the kind of must-have topics, but it also shows you the things that MarketMuse says are very relevant from a semantic relatedness or topic modeling perspective that nobody's talking about. So nobody's talking about KPIs. Nobody's talking about marketing metrics. Nobody's talking about the roles, content marketers, brand awareness. And so these red lines are ways to differentiate your content. So Rich, big differentiator, because we're using our own data and we're trying to figure it out as if you were an expert. Yeah. We're not just showing you how to copy. And so we show semantic relatedness and then we overlay the competitors. We don't build based on only the competitors. And that makes our clients win and feel good because they're writing great content.
I love it. I love it. It's data driven or data informed such that I would look at this and I wouldn't try to glom all that content onto a single page. This is content ideation for my calendar for the rest of the quarter.
Exactly right.
It's how to deploy the old HubSpot model of a pillar with a topic cluster around it. You can look at volume. This is really rich stuff.
Well, Rich, I'll give you, because you said that, Elizabeth's going to smirk when she said that. I'm going to give you a piece of a little homework. Go to web.archive, go to web.archive.com and find the first version of that article on HubSpot and look at the image that was on that page. Now look at that page now. And the image that was on that page is attributable to Elizabeth and me. So.
There you go. Do you get residuals? You're getting kickback, right?
Nope, they removed the image and removed the link. Okay, back to other topics. All right.
Thank you.
Content briefs. So we can also look at questions for intents. We also look at internal and external linking recommendations. So that you were talking about that pillar and cluster model. This tells you what links should be present to build out that model. And walk you through those internal links, and we can also walk you through those external links that are non-competitive. If you want to throw your competitors in there, we won't ever give you recommendations to link to them. If you have multiple sites in your network, like you're a publisher of 10 sites, we can provide you in-network semantically related links. It's a beautiful solution for cross-linking, and we include all that in your briefs as well. So the way we think about our platform is intelligence, what should I write, getting stuff done and executing, but sometimes you just have to do this DIY work. You know, you're doing a quick competitive analysis, you're doing a quick optimization. So all of these functions, if you combine them, make a great brief. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so
Awesome
much.
questions. I love these questions.
I think we have time for one more. Anyone want
Right.
to? You can use the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Jeff, can you have contractors jump into the system on your, on your system?
Tom's got all good questions. Yes, you can actually share any specific view with them, and then they don't have access to the rest of your site. You can share a brief. You can share that entire writing experience, which I will quickly bounce in. And so there's no worry about that. So this button here will create a link that when a person goes to it, let's say that we're going in a new view, they have that same experience, but they aren't logged in. So we actually validate this unique link, and then they have moment in time information. So they have all that data, but they're not causing any compliance risks. And this is a competitive differentiator for us, certainly for enterprise, because all the people that we were talking about before have holes there. So,
Well, thank you.
mhm.
Can you,
I had one. Oh, go ahead, Jake.
so I was just gonna say, while you have it open, could you share what the automated first draft looks like?
Yes. Yeah, 1 second. Did my screen share stop?
Yeah, try clicking it
Looks-
again. It doesn't look like the page is refreshing.
Oh, sorry. Hold on 1 second. Come on. This is the payoff. Don't make me have to drop into the back. Here we go. There we go. All right. Okay, so this is I'll just make if this is if you were authoring from fresh. I had the brief, and I can look at the competitive heat map that we just looked at. So this would be the draft that was generated for this example. So I can actually pull it in all at once, and it will on the fly check that against my model. I can even pull in sections at a time. So let's just say I liked this section only. I can import that paragraph right there, and I can tweak it here, and it's a rich text editor. So I can pull in section at a time as well. So what to know before adopting, I take that whole thing in 800 words. I see how it scores against the model. I can start to check it for compliance. I can also put my page head to head live to see which of the topics did I include, which of the topics I didn't.
So just to confirm, Jeff, you took a content brief and then that draft, I think it was like 2,300 words. That was completely auto-generated, the draft?
Yes, it was.
Wow.
And it was generated as a result of us being able to fine tune a model for the specific site, and then run many generations, and then prune and clean and pick all with our technology. And then that is the first draft that we generate. And yeah, this is what we're looking at right here is completely generated text that was tuned specifically for this model. I'll show you another one just so you see it's not dependent on one word. So patterns of, I'm not even gonna say the word, neutropenia. Right? So you see it can be even scientific. This is another one, boom. And you can, again, grade that through. And this is based on an equivalent brief. So 1474, we actually created it exactly to spec. It answers these questions. It considers these topics and this topic model. And then in future versions, it will actually be recommending links and providing highlighting for highlighting for facts that should be checked, which we do not do. We do not automate fact checking. So oftentimes you'll see crazy stuff in NLG. It's like, it'll just like have random stuff. For us, we're going to highlight it if there's a number, if there's a proper noun, just to make sure that people know to fact check anything that has any potentially debatable data points.
And Jeff, you said you might have 20 drafts and you just show the best one. Can the user look at the other ones if they so choose?
It's a funny question to ask that. We've tested, we've tested it, and it just doesn't, it doesn't do really. So we're trying to figure out what's the common ground between the showing everything and showing a fine-tuned version. Once we're confident in the quality, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the more magic feeling in editor, so you can actually generate an editor, and in addition to this type of reference experience, but we don't know how to get the hundreds or thousands of data points to people and make it so that they feel good about it. But yeah, I mean, when you have it, I mean, I'll show you an example. Why not? So this is an example where we created 3. You can see the score word count, and then the system goes through a process of grading. So this is generated. What questions were answered in this subsection? Topics were included, and then this gets basically they get baked off with a evaluation system, and then we get our output. But we're trying to figure it out. It is we're the only one doing it this way. So we are in the everyone else is just plugging in, send a prompt, and you get the response. And that was if someone asked about other comparables, conversion AI, niches, NICHESS with $signs. Conversion AI with Jarvis is the most popular one. They've already made 3 acquisitions of competitors in the space. But I always say, like, go check it out. It may work for your workflows. Like, go check all of them out, because if you find one that really works, it can really be amazing. For us, my favorite use case example was had a team, they were putting about 2 to 4 pages out, but they knew they should have been putting out a whole bunch more. They're able to, with the same team, get out the addition and be happy with the quality. And when you're writing a content cluster like Rich referenced, there's like 8 support pages that you have to do, and you never get to them. I mean, that's my experience. I never get to all of them. And I always feel like and so this is giving us the ability to actually get to all the really specific intents that don't have much volume. And, you feel like all they are is support or foundation building. And, when people get that's that use case, stuff changes. And that's really what we're shooting for. So.
Excellent. Well, Jeff and Elizabeth,